Hey everybody, good morning. We will be starting in just a quick moment here. Good morning, good morning. Let's do this.
Live from the world headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital, this is the news with Rick Sanchez.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and I want to welcome all of you who are watching us from all over the world, including those of you who are watching on your mobile phones using the portable TV app. Three major American banks are stockpiling money over fears the coronavirus recession could get even worse. Let me tell you who they are. JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citigroup have all set aside almost $30 billion that they say is going to be there to try and cover loan payments that Americans are increasingly unable to make. Those loans include credit card debt that Americans aren't making, business loans, mortgages in forbearance that are sometimes being delayed, in some cases up to a year, that people are telling their banks, look, I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage for at least 6 months, in some cases a year, depending on the bank, depending on the terms. Joining us now to talk about this is Jason Hartman. Jason is the founder and the CEO of Platinum Properties Investment Network. He's also a very prolific investor in his own right. I guess the takeaway here, Jason, is that banks are looking like they're getting stingy with their money and about to become even more stingy down the line. Is that, am I reading this properly?
Yes, Rick, during the Great Recession, everybody blamed the banks for being too liberal in their lending guidelines and giving out a bunch of liar's loans and ninja loans, meaning, no income, no job, doesn't matter, right? And so now the banks are being more conservative. There's no question about it. Even as they have stockpiled between the three big banks that you mentioned, about $28 billion, we are seeing mortgage applications for both purchases and refinances go through the roof. I mean, consumers, homeowners and home buyers cannot resist these low rates. It's causing an artificial boom in the housing market. And there's a lot of repositioning, as we talked about when I was on with you prior, people moving to the suburbs. But one of my fears is that we'll see what we had seen happen after the Great Recession, or even during, is this, this kind of vicious circle, this cause and effect, where the banks overcorrect. On one side of the pendulum, it swings back and forth, right? They're too liberal, and then they become overly conservative, and then that hurts the housing market, hurts the economy overall. So that's one of the things we need to be mindful of, is that let's hope they don't overcorrect. It is good that they're being careful, for sure, but overcorrection is just as bad.
Let me take you in a different and interesting direction that conflicts somewhat with what you just postulated and with what a lot of people are saying and fearing. And that is that so many people out there are going to owe so much money, and they're taking all this stimulus money, but in many cases they don't have jobs and they're not going to be able to pay down their mortgages. Oh my God, the sky is falling. And that means that eventually we're going to have one hell of a bad economy, right? Okay, Let's go in a different direction. And suppose that all these people are actually not idiots, and because the government is putting money in their pockets, they're able to use it in a wise way and help boost our economy down the road. Is this pie in the sky, or is there a possibility that this could happen as well?
No, it's a very interesting point you raise, Rick, because, the basis of wealth for the individual, the family, or the society is capital formation. And what a lot of people are doing right now, although we don't have any, very detailed statistics on this yet, but a lot of people are using their unemployment money, their bonus unemployment. They may not really be unemployed. A lot of people are gig workers, and you kind of can't tell. They have their own business. It's very hard to really know. And what they're doing is they're not paying their housing payment. They're not paying rent. They're not paying their mortgage. They're in a forbearance program, and they're stockpiling cash. So interestingly, these are strange times we're in. Some people are actually going to come out of this pretty darn well, even if you think they have a hardship, because it might show up that they're on a forbearance program or they're living in an apartment and not paying rent or getting a reduced rent or getting some sort of loan workout on a mortgage, either side, renter or homeowner, but they're using that to save money because they're living in their house for free or at a reduced price.
So you're saying that by them stockpiling this cash, what we could actually have is the opposite of what many are predicting, that we could have either a big or a small boom economy somewhere in the near future.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'd say that as far as the pandemic goes, we're probably in the third inning. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still early. We're in the third inning, and we've got a ways to go. The economy is definitely in trouble. There's no question about that. But there are definitely some bright signs. I talked about before, there's a shortage of supply in housing, automobiles, a lot of consumer products. So this is the supply-demand shock that we talked about on a prior show.
Great stuff as usual. Jason Hartman joining us to talk about some of the things that may be happening from a on the ground perspective, which is where he lives, by the way, which is not theory or thesis, but actually what's going on pragmatically. Thanks again, Jason.
I'm Justin Harima. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm at Meet the Masters, and it is going awesome. I've actually been learning a lot about trusts and tax benefits to real estate and how to invest with IRAs and those sorts of things. I've been investing actually well over 10 years now, and I learned a lot of new things today. So I was pretty surprised that there's some techniques out there that I'd never heard of with how long I've been doing real estate. So it's really great, and I'm getting a lot of good information.
My dad, he does real estate properties, and he's a partner with Jason. This is my first one. Yeah. It's fun. I'm learning a lot of new things about real estate that I didn't know. What? Oh. I don't know. I'll try to start
one
young.
of our youngest attendees,
Yeah.
folks.
Favorite part? Probably when they talk about sellings and in different places, so I know which places are best to buy properties.
Hi, my name is Brandon Cook. This is my fourth Meet the Masters seminar. I attended the first one here when it was the Hyatt Regency. It was a little bit smaller than this one, and this year it's completely filled. We've got side seating, to fill in the overflow. So it just shows, a lot of growth, a lot of interest in the asset, real estate. If people don't know how good it is now, they're about to find out.
All right, Adam, welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here. And that kid's putting his allowance to good money if he's talking about where he's going to be buying.
He is putting his allowance to good work. I'm impressed. That's for sure. We've had some really young visitors come to our events over the years with their parents, of course, and that's just super neat to see them, get exposed to this stuff so early. It's absolutely fantastic. But how are you doing today, Adam? And
it's a good day. My kids are actually making money right now. So
they are. What are they doing?
Oh, they have their weekly chores they have to do, but then they wanted to make money, so we offered them extra chores they could do that we'll actually pay them for. So they're doing the paid for chores.
So in other words, you have the forced labor, where you're a slave driver parent, right?
Being a part of the family, yes.
Yes, being a part of the family, yes, that's okay. I agree. And then you pay them extra for doing extra stuff, huh?
Yep, we made out a list and we talked about reasonable pricing, and the six of us came to an agreement. And so, then every week they get to volunteer for what chores they want to do, and they know how much money they can make. And they have from Sunday to Sunday afternoon to Sunday at lunch to get it done, and they can back out of the chore until Thursday.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very good. So you put a deadline. You're very official about it. Now, when you talk to your kids about reasonable pricing, there's a lesson in there that you can teach them. You can teach them about the concept of price discovery. And how do you come to a conclusion of reasonable pricing?
We actually did that during the pricing. One of them was dusting all the baseboards and the wood, the hardwood that we have around the upstairs railing.
Sure.
And Erin, my wife, said, that chore is worth $1. And they kind of looked at her, and I kind of looked at her a little bit too. And Elliot, my second born, who's like big into making money, he said, I think that's $2.
Yeah. So negotiate. But the concept of price discovery is interesting. And I think I talked about it last week because in the former Soviet Union, they didn't have a mechanism of price discovery. And I'm almost finished with this great documentary series on, I believe it's Adam Curtis's YouTube channel. He did a 3-part series called The Century of Self. I talked about that on the podcast the other day, and that's a fascinating series. But now there's another one I'm watching called Pandora's Box. And he's interviewing, he's showing interviews of all these people in the former Soviet Union and after the Soviet Union collapsed that were responsible for setting pricing of, like a couple million, like I think 4 million items, and trying to figure out the supply chain and the supply and demand and what the price of anything should be. And because their system was such a disaster, they didn't know what the price of anything should be under communism. So what they did is they would simply look to the West, and they would look to the United States specifically to figure out what the value of something was, what the price of it should be, and that's an interesting thing. Also, in the real estate world, one of the things that really messes up the market is government interference. Now, you might differ with me on any of this, of course, but for example, during the Great Recession, we're talking 10, 12 years ago, depending on how you look at it, one of the big complaints and criticisms I had is that with all these bailout programs, they were just prohibiting price discovery. What I think they should have let happen is they should have let the market just really crash. It would have been a very short crash. Those foreclosures would have cycled through the system. There would have been a lot of vulture investors who would have gone in there and purchased the properties. And oh, hey, it looks like Mark Moss is here, our other guest. So let's have him join us. Hey, Mark, welcome. How are you? I don't know if he can hear us yet. So anyway, he'll be with us in a moment.
Yeah, we took the price discovery because we knew our house cleaner stopped coming because of COVID. So we're like, well, we pay her about this much an hour. So we'll, if the kid, and she comes every 3 weeks. So if the kids do this every 3 weeks, then it'll add up to about what we were paying her.
Well, those kids are highly paid then because the price discovery hasn't even worked because they're young. They don't have the experience the professional housekeeper has, right? They're
not making quite as much as her.
Yeah.
It's basically if they do everything she was doing, but for 3 weeks. So she was doing it once every 3 weeks. If they do it every week for 3 weeks, they get roughly what she was getting.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, hey, let's welcome Mark Moss. Mark, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I hear you. I couldn't get my main camera to work, so I had to set up another camera. So I'm looking a little bad this morning, but I'm here.
You look fine to us. So this is Adam. Adam is one of our investment counselors. Adam, Mark Moss. And
hey, Mark.
Hi, Adam.
Folks, let me tell you about our special guest today. We had Adam on last week. He's an internal person, but Mark Moss hosts a fantastic YouTube channel. I've been on his show a couple of times. He's been on mine, and he's got some really interesting insights into real estate investing, cryptocurrencies, and such. And I got a little criticism last week, the week before, saying that, hey, Jason, you're just wrong about this crypto stuff. And so, here's the expert. I brought him, and he can talk about it. But hey, a couple things before we dive in here. First off, I want to say happy birthday to one of our clients, Matt. I think his birthday was yesterday. I know he's watching. So Matt Brill, happy birthday to you. I think it was your birthday just yesterday or something. Saw that on Facebook. And we've got Matt E. I don't know the last name, from Matt and Julie from Aliso Viejo. Welcome. We've got Sejong. How do you say that? I'm not sure. Good morning. And then Peter, good morning. And he says there was price discovery in the former Soviet Union, the black market. Peter, you're absolutely right. The black market was probably their best price discovery mechanism. Very good point. Very good point. And that's Peter's comment right here. So good stuff. All right, Mark. Maybe I'll give us a little bit to talk about first. I got a couple of slides here I'll show, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of comments, and so will Adam on this. So let's just dive right in.
Sure.
One of the things I want to touch on today is what we talked about yesterday, Mark, which is how people vote with their feet. And several years ago, I interviewed Meredith Whitney, who wrote a fantastic book called The Fate of the States. And this book is just about the new geography of prosperity and how it is moving out of these, there's an old saying, money always goes where it's treated best.
Yep.
And so do people. And so people have been for many years fleeing the high tax, government, high government intrusion places like California, like New York, and other places like that, not just states, but countries and even municipalities. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. The other interesting thing is yesterday, Mark, you and I talked a little bit about seasteading.
Yep.
And Adam, when you were producing the podcast, you probably remember I interviewed my friend Patrick Friedman, who's the grandson of Milton Friedman, the famous economist. And he's really into seasteading. And so if you haven't heard of this idea, folks, it's pretty wild. Fascinating, where the idea is that literally sovereign countries would be either installed in the sea, like oil wells, offshore drilling platforms, or they would be floating, literally floating nations. And so Patrick Friedman talks about this. Maybe we'll talk about this as we talk about how people vote with their feet. Okay, and they definitely vote with their feet. And we're going to take a look at this new geography of prosperity a little bit. And, again, there's a lot more information on my podcast. I've done many shows about all of these topics, of course, over the last 16 years. So, Mark, before we go too much further, just give us your take on things, if you would.
Well, my take on things, that's a really big question in regards to what you're saying right now. So my take on that is exactly what you just said. So the quote that you said, I say that all the time, and I'm not even sure where I got that from, that money goes where it's treated best. I learned that as an investor. And so I'm always trying to get my money to the place that is treated best, and best obviously is subjective. So the place that it can hold its value the best, the place that it's not going to get seized, the place that can earn the most, et cetera. But also, so I definitely agree with that statement. And then you also said we vote with our feet, and for sure we do that. I think we also vote with our money, obviously, and not just with, donating to political parties, but by what we spend our money on. And you kind of mentioned in the beginning, I'm a Bitcoin guy, which I am. I'm a hard sound money guy. I'm a bring back things to reality guy. And as a Bitcoiner, that's what we also say. We vote with our money. And so Bitcoin is a way to opt out of the system. And it's like, hey, I'm out, right? No, you don't get fractional reserve system doesn't get my money anymore. And then that brings us to an interesting point to what you're saying, because for two things. One, Bitcoin is revolutionary for a number of reasons, one of which is because it's decentralized, meaning no one person or group can control it, which means no one person or group can manipulate it. And the reason why that's important, and it segues back into what we're talking about here, is because, Jason, what you're talking about with being able to move from state to state is also decentralized. It's a decentralized country. And really, the United States was founded as a decentralized country, as a republic, right, of independent states. And the reason why that's important is because if there's independent states that are a decentralized government, it allows us to do what you're saying, Jason. I hate California. I moved to Texas. I hate, whatever. I don't want to be in.
And that's where Adam lives. He's in Austin, Texas, by the way.
Right, exactly, right. So it's important that we see that, and also the world. And then there's one more correlating piece that's also interesting for this conversation, and that's really what's allowed this to happen, for us to vote with our feet. as you say, and move. It's geo arbitrage, if you will, right? Live in another place, but work in another place. It's the rise of the internet, right? The rise of the internet, because now it allows us to live and work wherever we need to. We're all in different locations right now, but we're all working together. So the internet has definitely started this. The pandemic is accelerating it, right? Facebook, Google, et cetera, so you don't ever have to come back to work. But the other piece is, the United States was a place that people from all over the world would come, especially from countries that were oppressive. So I have friends that have come from South Africa. I have friends that have come from the Middle East. And when their parents came here, they had to leave everything they owned in the other country. They couldn't get their money out of Iran. They couldn't get their money out of South Africa. And Bitcoin allows us to just transfer our wealth. I could remember 12 words in my head. I could go anywhere in the world I want. I could plug those 12 words back in, and I could have $1 billion in my account if I was lucky enough to have $1 billion. So anyway,
$1 billion.
Yeah, but some interesting things.
What's funny to me is Bitcoiners are still denominating things in dollars. You just said it. You could, by knowing your Bitcoin vault code, you could open up your wallet and have $1 billion.
Sure.
When will that shift occur in your eyes to where Bitcoin really becomes the actual currency? Like, it doesn't really have value as a currency. It's still a store of money. But when do you think this switch will happen?
I don't think it's a switch. I don't think it's a light switch, like one day it's this, one day it's that. I think it's a gradual thing. And I can just say a couple things real quick. So first of all, nobody buys Starbucks coffee with gold. And everybody always says, well, you can't buy coffee with Bitcoin. Well, do you buy coffee with gold? No, but it's still a $10 trillion asset. There's about $30 to $40 trillion parked in offshore banking accounts, but you don't use those to go buy Starbucks either. But yet those are 30 to 40 trillion. And so Bitcoin is both of those, right? It's a way to get money out of the banking system like an offshore bank. It's a way to get into an alternative asset that can't be manipulated like gold. And yet neither of those are, I'm not denominating things in gold either, right? So when will we
denominated in dollars all the time? It's just a trade for the most part, just like Bitcoin.
You're exactly right, Adam. So but to answer your question, Jason, it's I believe, and again, back to this decentralized nature, that I believe that money can be whatever we decide it to be. So obviously it's been feathers and stones and shells throughout history. If I was going to do a deal for you, Jason, I could say, hey, how about I trade you this book for your book, right? So now books are currency. I could say, hey, Jason, let me build you a new website and you give me access to your course. Now I'm trading you my labor. And so, we can use different things. And I think at some point people will choose Bitcoin. They already are. Will it ever become adopted by the governments as a reserve currency? Probably not. Will it be used on a widespread basis throughout the people, the people's money? I think so. And I don't think it's a light switch moment. I think it's it's a gradual and then sudden thing. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a useful saying that says currency is easy to make. Getting it accepted is the hard part.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Adam, we haven't talked much about cryptocurrencies. We've talked a lot and debated a lot about MMT, modern monetary theory. But I don't know that I've actually had too many discussions with you about crypto. Have we?
No, we haven't had a lot. And I think, like Mark was kind of talking about, I think it's a fine thing to trade in. And if you think it's going to go up in value, then, it's absolutely worth it. I personally haven't invested in it because I just think it's too speculative. At least with gold, you have the manufacturing uses that it can be good for. You can actually use it in.
Well, and you've got a 5,000-year history with gold.
That part to me doesn't really matter. I don't think, if the government collapses and you just have a bunch of gold bars, people aren't really going to care whenever they're trying to get, food from you. I'll take a loaf of bread for this gold nugget. And they're going to say, well, how am I going to eat a gold nugget? But, at least you can use the gold in actually creating things. So Bitcoin to me is just a little too speculative and all.
Let me jump in on that, Adam. So that's
and Mark, before you do jump in, everybody please post your questions. I see them coming in and we'll get to them. So questions, comments. If you think we're brilliant, if you think we're crazy, you probably think we're brilliant, at least me, of course. But and Mark, I don't know, Adam, sometimes I get in debates with Adam about MMT and stuff. But yeah, please post your questions, comments. We'll get to them. Mark, it's all yours.
Yeah. So, I guess maybe if we have debates about MMT, we need to start there, because if we're going to debate about gold, really we have to understand money. And so a lot of times we're arguing up here on this level, but if we don't agree here, this argument's completely worthless. So if we don't agree about MMT and money, then we'll never agree about gold or Bitcoin. So anyway, but back to your statement there, Adam. That's kind of like you've been listening to Peter Schiff a little bit too much. That's Peter Schiff's argument. So gold is physical. I can hold it and I can do something with it, right? That's what Peter Schiff says. Peter Schiff says I can at least turn gold into cufflinks.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's absolutely right. But
Peter Schiff's a gold bug, but he sells gold. Now, Max Kaiser is a huge Bitcoin fan. And the interesting thing about Max Kaiser and Peter Schiff, both of them have been on my podcast, by the way.
Peter Schiff's insane.
And they're both super interesting to listen to. They both tend to be wrong a lot, but Max Kaiser, I don't know if you're a fan, Mark, you probably are, of his work. I like his wife, Stacy, a lot too. And they're really big on Bitcoin. Huge.
Well, but they're big on gold too, right? They're big on gold and Bitcoin because they're hard sound money people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're both. And so I think gold and Bitcoin are fighting the same war. But back to that comment real quick. So silver was demonetized in the late 1800s, and it is about 80% of silver is used for industrial purposes, kind of as you're suggesting, Adam. Gold, however, is like only a few percent is actually used for any industrial purpose. And yes, you're right, Adam. You could convert it, as Peter Schiff says, into cufflinks. But I could make cufflinks out of all kinds of things.
Right.
I can make cufflinks out of steel. I can make cufflinks out of whatever, right? So yes, you could use gold for that, but that's not what gives it its premium. So it's purchased as a store of value, and it's purchased by central banks and whatnot. And so so I think gold has a certain utility. Yeah, I could melt it down and make cufflinks, but it's not valuable for cufflinks. It's way too expensive for cufflinks. Yes, it makes really good conductors. I can put it on my RCA jacks, and if you're really old enough, and you can plug it into your stereo. we don't need that anymore. Nobody makes gold-plated connectors much anymore.
But they're inside some electronics.
Yeah, for sure they are. So anyway, from that perspective, I think that argument is really mute. That's not to say gold's not valuable, but it's valuable because it's a store of value. It's recognized for 5,000 years, as Jason said. Central banks are buying massive amounts of gold. Last year, they bought more gold than any time in history since 1971, not because it can be made into cufflinks, because it's a store of value.
Yeah, I mean, I agree for the most part. That's what it is. I'm just saying that out of all the things, at least you can use it. I mean, making it into cufflinks is it's kind of a crazy argument if Schiff is making that argument, but at least
that's his one statement he always sticks with. But whether it's making good connectors, I mean, it's still kind of the same thing. It's way too expensive. That's not where it gets the price from.
Yeah. So a couple questions, guys, or comments here. Jason, how do you weigh in on natural disasters into the equation? Here it is. How do you weigh in natural disasters in the equation of location? For example, I like investing in Florida, but I'm worried about hurricanes. Yeah, I agree. I do consider that, but the biggest natural disaster is high taxes and landlord unfriendly jurisdictions. If you think about it, and I live in Florida, and I can't wait to experience my first hurricane. I almost did last year, but I'm kind of a freak. I love weather phenomena. I just love it. I don't know why. It's weird.
As someone who's lived through a hurricane, you'll regret saying that in your first hurricane.
Oh, really? Yeah. Have you, living in Houston, growing up in Houston, did you?
Yeah, we went 12 and a half days without power.
Oh, that's no fun. No, I did buy a little generator, but anyway. Mark, have you ever been through a hurricane?
I have not. I actually been through a hurricane. I did grow up in South Texas, down on South Padre Island, so we definitely had the hurricanes over there. We've seen some get close. I've seen the wind and rain, but I have not been directly hit by one. Mm-hmm. I was in Cabo San Lucas at the end of Baja California, and one hit pretty close there as well. I mean, it rained like cats and dogs for 5 days, flooded the streets, but I've been pretty fortunate to stay out of those. Earthquakes, on the other hand, though, I've gone through plenty of those here in California.
That's right. And by the way, Mark is in San Clemente, California, right?
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff. In the near where I used to live, in the old socialist republic. Are you going to get out? Are you going to vote with your feet, Mark?
That's a great question, and it's honestly it's something that's my wife and I discuss all the time. They just said they just passed a bill or proposed a bill to raise state income taxes to 16.8%.
It's unbelievable.
And on top of that, if you leave the state, you owe tax for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? And on top of that, now I'm sure a lot of people have seen they're kicking, Lyft and Uber out of the state, which is a lot bigger than just Uber and Lyft. What it is they passed the
gig
law.
economy. It's a bill called Assembly Bill 5, AB 5, and they've just destroyed, or they're still trying to destroy completely, the gig economy in California. So some of these platforms like TaskRabbit and all of these. There's a whole zillion of these platforms out there that, like Mark, you said to me yesterday, if you want to hire a tutor for one of your kids, it's like you'd have to put them on salary and make them a full-time employee. It's absurd.
It's absurd.
Such a terrible idea. Like,
you can do like 35 lessons and then they'll have to quit and you'll find a new tutor.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it is? They can do like 35 gigs and then you have to be a full-time employee.
Unbelievable.
I'm not sure what that number is, but yeah, I mean, that's just one example of the continuous assault that we get here, being in California. And obviously both of you guys are aware, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to get your taxes down, which, we can whittle that down a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's super expensive to live in California. If it wasn't for the stupid weather, like this last week, the beaches were just so nice. I live right here on the beach and I'm a surfer, and Florida doesn't have any waves. Otherwise we'd probably be over there sooner, but it is something that we look at on a serious basis. And when you're starting to look at how much money you're putting towards taxes and what those tax dollars are being used for, it's definitely pushing us. And I think there's a better than good chance we'll probably end up moving out of here.
Yeah. A couple of comments here. Number one, Matt says he graduated from San Clemente High, Mark.
What's up, Matt?
Yeah, there you go. Why can't the government seize Bitcoin?
The government can't seize Bitcoin because it is controlled by cryptographic security. So basically the only way they could do that would be if they could somehow seize the access to my account, which would be if they got my password or something like that. So if they were, like in the past when they've seized Bitcoin, they've done raids and somebody's computer was open and they were able just to get on the computer. They could put a gun to my head, obviously, and say, if you don't give us the password, we're going to kill you. Sure. But without that cryptographic code, it can't be done. So they have to get that. And the only way to get that is by force. And I could decide if I want to do that or not. Right.
And, I think the thing that they can do, and this is what I've been saying for years, is they can just make it illegal. Like you were saying earlier, Mark, we can trade in anything, of course. Any form of thing can be a currency. It's basically the barter system. And for example, an illegal drug like cocaine is a currency. I mean, drug dealers trade it like a currency, right? And but it's illegal, so it has a really small market because it's illegal. Very few people want to take the chance of getting busted for trading something illegal.
Wait! You live in Florida. You're saying cocaine is very cocaine. Hardly anybody uses cocaine. Is that what you're saying? Like, come on.
This is the state. There's actually a bar here that Carmen took me to last year called Square Grouper, and we went in there. It's actually where they filmed a fantastic video that Alan Jackson did called "It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere." One of the best music videos ever, by the way. And I walked in there with her, and I said, "This place looks so familiar," and I thought it's from that music video. And anyway, it's called Square Grouper. And we asked, like, what does that mean? Why this funny name? Apparently, when these drug smugglers get busted and all these plastic pouches of cocaine or whatever drug they're smuggling in, they'll spread out in the water, and they call those a square grouper. They're a bunch of squares, that's the drugs floating on the water. So I thought
that's funny.
That's a Florida bar, actually.
I want to get into that question that you asked, like, why can't government seize it? Well, which we did.
Well, I didn't.
And then you said, why can't they just ban it or make it illegal? And the reason why I want to jump into that question real quick is because it brings us back to your original topic, which was voting with our feet. And when you asked me what I thought about that, I said, we now have a technology that really makes it possible for us to do that, right? So, of course, we can vote with our feet from state to state. But Jason, you're talking about homesteading. Now we're talking about voting with our feet, seasteading, right? Now you're talking about voting with our feet, country to country. Yep. And so, as I said real quickly, right, like people that I know that had to escape Iran or had to escape South Africa didn't get out with their money. It was stuck in the banking system. So Bitcoin is the only thing that gives us that. So back to that question, why can't they just ban it? Well, of course they can, for sure, right? Just like they ban cocaine. Imagine cocaine has to be grown in fields. It has to be processed. It has to be transported. It has to be smuggled across state lines. It has to be physically passed out on street corners. Bitcoin's digital. If they can't even stop a plant, a production, a distribution, how are they going to stop something completely digital? First of all. Second of all, the very fact that they want to ban it or would want to ban it proves the need for it even that much more, right? If the government doesn't want you to have a money they can't seize from you, it makes me want to have a money they can't seize from me even more. You see what I'm saying? So they prove that. The other thing is back to what we're talking about, voting with our feet. So what happens is game theory here, right? One country says, so for example, in California, our great rep Brad Sherman, he went before Congress and said, we have to ban Bitcoin because it undermines the dollar and it takes away our ability to slap sanctions on countries like Iran. So, which is true, which is exactly why we like it. So Iran's sitting there going, wait a minute, this takes away the U.S.'s ability to slap sanctions on us?
Yeah,
we're going to make Bitcoin legal here. Yeah. And guess what happens? Then people leave the United States and they go to a country that makes it legal. So I believe this game that we're talking about, or this,
but they're not going to Iran much.
Well, I was just using that as an example, obviously. But Malta, for example, the whole country is like the most pro Bitcoin cryptocurrency country in the world. And we're starting to see this, right? We're starting to see, I saw Barbados said, hey, we're giving away free year visas to anybody who wants to come here and work. Yeah. And so we're talking about state to state, but I think country to country, this ability to geo arbitrage or vote with our feet is going to get bigger and bigger. And it's not possible without a technology like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Mark, could they shut down? Are the wallets completely decentralized?
Yeah, everything's
or like more in one central place.
No, everything's completely decentralized. So obviously, there's like exchanges. So like if I buy it on Coinbase, that's an exchange. If I leave it there, they could go shut Coinbase down and seize any assets I have on Coinbase. But if I take control of it and I have my code, my private key, you can't get it unless you get my private key, and I can just memorize it. You can't get it. So, so anyway, this thing, which I'm super excited about, Jason, which is ability to vote for our feet, because I believe that competition always leads to better products, better prices, and better service. Yep. And so we want states to compete for us. So like Elon Musk said, he's going to move out of California. Nevada and Texas were like, over here, right? Yeah. We'll give you buildings, we'll give you tax breaks. And that's how it should be. Yep. And California is like, get the F out of here. Right. Right. And we want countries to do that as well. And in order for this to really play out, and this is what makes me somewhat hopeful for the future, is that we'll start to see this competition. But again, you can't carry your gold with you. You can't get your money out of the banking system. The only way it's possible is with something like Bitcoin.
Okay, so what about this question from Jane Doe? I love it. I'm guessing, Jane, that's not your real name. Mark, you want to grab that?
The cryptocurrency can be used as digital accounting method to trade physical goods? Well, yeah, sure. I mean, you could use it to trade physical goods. I mean, in some places where money fails, they're trading water for bread, right? In jail, they're using cigarettes as currency. So yeah, you could use anything with it. Sure.
Here's another one. This is about California. Jared, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I left in 2011. It was one of the best decisions of my entire life, leaving the Socialist Republic of California. A lot of people were saying, oh, Jason will be back in 6 months. I lived in Arizona for 6 years. I loved Arizona. And then I lived in Nevada for 1.5 years, and now Florida for over 2 years. So yeah, get yourself, look at folks. I know a lot of you listening, if you're in a a place where your money isn't treated well, right? Because money always goes to where it's treated best. New York, California are probably the best examples in our country about that. Just make a plan. Maybe you can't do it now. You think it's far off, but maybe in 5 years, you can do that, and you can really have some options. So couldn't agree more there. Okay, what's this one? My passive losses from my real estate, most of my income. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, Paul. So passive losses mean usually it's referring to depreciation losses, which are the holy grail of tax write-off. Passive losses are a good thing. We love these passive losses, referring to depreciation, because it's what I call a non-cash write-off. You don't actually have to write a check or pay any money to get the tax benefit. Your property could be performing really well, yet you can show losses on your tax returns. And that's why wealthy real estate investors can really minimize their tax bill. It's the most tax-favored asset class in America. Adam?
I was going to say, I think anybody listening, it's really important to remember that you need to put it on your taxes, because whether you claim it or not, the government's depreciating your property. And when you sell, they're going to say, well, you had it for 20 years. It should have depreciated this much. We don't care that you didn't put it on your taxes. It depreciated. So it's important to remember that. So if you're doing your own taxes, I don't do my own taxes. I think a lot of real estate investors don't do their own taxes because it can get a little confusing. But
yeah, good point. Mark, you want to grab that question?
Yeah, sure. EOS is the next Ethereum. He holds Bitcoin, Ethereum, and EOS in this next crypto bull run. Gold and silver more so as well. So what I'd say by that is, whenever you buy, and same with real estate, whenever you buy any asset, any investment, before you buy, you need to know, what am I buying? What is it? Why am I buying it? How does it fit into my portfolio? And what do I expect out of it, right? So you should know all those things before you ever buy anything. And so the reason why I say that is because it's super different. I might buy one house just to fix it and flip it real quick. I might buy this other one because I want to hold, because I believe in 10 years it's going to be worth a lot of money because they're developing, right? So I have to understand what I'm buying, how it fits in. So it's interesting, the question here, because there's a lot of different assets that are all completely different here. So for example, let's dive into the easy one, gold and silver. Okay. Gold and silver aren't the same. For 5,000 years, gold and silver were the same. In 1890, they weren't the same anymore. The reason why is because silver and gold worked together. Gold was for big denominations. Silver was small and divisible. It was used for small transactions. It was always about 15-1 for 5,000 years. Well, we came up with a new technology. It's called paper. Gold went into the banks, and instead of having to carry bulky gold and silver, we just used paper gold certificates. Now we didn't need
which, by the way, is the ultimate example of fiat money right there. But go ahead.
Well, at that point, it was still backed by gold, right? It was a gold certificate, but we didn't need silver anymore because silver was used for small divisible things. But now we just use paper. So silver became obsolete. And in 1893, I think it was formally by the government taken away, demonetized. It's no longer money. So my point is, gold and silver aren't the same. Central banks are buying gold because it's money. They're not buying silver. So when you buy gold and silver, I buy gold because I believe it's money, will protect my purchasing power. I buy silver as speculation. I think that it will keep up with gold. See?
But in terms of what Adam said earlier, which is about the industrial uses, silver obviously has a lot more industrial use than gold.
For sure.
And it's surprising because I've been buying gold and silver since gold was like $400 an ounce and silver was like $9 an ounce. And listen, I don't like precious metals. I don't think they're anything great. I just have a little bit as insurance, like my half a Bitcoin that I own is insurance too. Okay. So if it goes to $1 million, I'll have $500,000 from my Bitcoin. I like income property. I think it's the best asset class of all. I'm surprised silver is as cheap as it is, even after all this time. I mean, that really does surprise me.
It has to remain cheap though, because it's used for industrial purposes. There's not a big monetary premium put on it like there is for gold.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying as far as utility, silver at least has industrial utility more so than gold.
Right, which is why the price is where it's at, right? If that price went up, imagine what that would do to the prices of all the electronics and whatever they were using it in.
Yeah.
But the point is that gold is going up because it's money. Central banks are buying it because it's money. It's a reserve. They're not buying silver because people speculate that silver will catch up to gold. That old ratio will come back.
Yeah.
So it's different. And the reason why I started there is because with the Bitcoin, he's asking about another one called EOS, and it's the same thing. It's like EOS is like why? That's just a speculation. That's like a throw a dart at the board, and hopefully it goes up in value. It's not the same as Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Here's another one for you.
Hey, Mark.
Jacko asks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that's keeping like businesses from accepting cryptocurrency is that they're waiting for the market to kind of stabilize, because Bitcoin's gone from like 100 to 20,000 down to 10,000 and 5,000. I think if you really want to get companies accepting it, it kind of has to flatten out and not make the huge shifts. When or what do you think would actually make that happen?
Yeah, Adam, that's a great point, and I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you on that. So, but we have to understand the evolution of new technologies and the evolution of money. So, for example, any new technology goes through a very similar phase. We can go back to the industrial evolution. We can look at cars. It's always the same way. So, at first, you have an inventor, and you have this inventor, and then you get these like true believers that come in and believe this invention. Now, in order for that to get off the ground, you need money. So, speculators come in. Speculators start bidding it up. It goes through this process where money is brought in through speculators. The technology is developed and brought on. And it's very volatile because there's not good price discovery, right? As it gets bigger, it starts bringing in more mass adoption. The more mass adoption come in, they start outweighing the speculators, and you start to see that smooth out. So back to your question, yes, we are in a speculative stage. It is volatile. You can't go from zero to $10,000 without volatility. Volatility works both ways, up and down. So we're in this price discovery phase. It is volatile, yes. When will it smooth out? As it gets bigger, right? So right now it's like this much of Facebook. You know what I mean? So it needs to get bigger, and as it gets bigger and more public comes in, the volatility swings will get less eventually. Right now we want it to be volatile. I want it to go from 10,000 to 100,000. I want the volatility right now. But eventually, it's going to go away once enough people come in and it's a big enough market cap.
I thought you'd both appreciate this sign.
Yeah.
Was it something we taxed? I like that.
California, yeah. A lot of people have been voting with their feet. Okay, let's get back to that question. Here you go. Mark, you want to grab that question?
I think there's a I don't think there's a chance that a government will ever adopt it, because a government is never going to, well, maybe a little tiny small government, but not a superpower government, because they're never going to want to live within their means. They're always going to want to create money out of thin air, and adopting Bitcoin would force them to live on something that can't be inflated. And the same reason why they wouldn't go back to a gold standard without having to be forced to do that. So will other fiats be measured in Bitcoin? Sure. Other fiats are measured in lots of assets. Other fiats are measured in house prices, and they're measured in oil, and they're measured in gold too, right? So of course,
great website, by the way. Let me just interject a website. I have not interviewed. I've interviewed like almost everybody on my show. We've got like 6,000 interviews out there, but I have not interviewed the founder of a website called Priced in Gold. And Mark, you probably know this site. Adam, you might know it too. But I really want to get that guy on the show, because what he does is he prices everything in everything else. It was, I'm sure originally the idea of priced in gold. In other words, how much does a house cost in gold? How much does a gallon of gas cost in gold? Or a barrel of oil, whatever, right? And what's the gold to silver ratio? It just shows you the ratios of everything. And now he's been comparing cryptocurrencies and all sorts of stuff. And it's really interesting. See, that's what most people just don't understand. They just don't get it, is that everything has to have a measuring stick, something to compare it to. And you regular listeners to my podcast know the Jason Hartman question is, compared to what?
Right.
That's always the question that rules life, in my opinion.
You're right.
And so you've got to have a measuring stick. But at the end of the day, the ultimate measuring stick is, what can you buy that you need or want to live? How much food can you buy? How much shelter can you buy? How much medical care can you buy? How much education can you buy? That's the ultimate. Those are the most important commodities. And if you want to know what the most important commodities are, you can just refer to, your psychology class in college and look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And that's kind of the example of that. But thoughts on that?
I think the only thing you're going to see in terms of countries using it is as it smooths out, you might see some country or currency to Bitcoin, but like Mark was saying, they're never going to, the bigger first world countries are never going to give up their ability to, create money and, leverage everything out to an outside entity.
Not willingly.
Yeah, I couldn't completely agree.
And it's a bad idea, honestly.
And
F.A. Hayek, if you guys really get into money, F.A. Hayek, he's Austrian School of Economics. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner from 1979 or whatever. In 1984,
he's smarter than John Maynard Keynes.
I mean, he's smart. He's so smart. Anyway, he had a famous quote that I love that I repeat all the time, and he almost was telling the future with this quote. And he said it, I think, in 1982 or 84, somewhere right there. And he said, "There shall never be a sound money again until the thing is taken out of the hands of the government. But it can't be done in a forceful way. It can only be done in a sly, roundabout way where they don't know what's happening until it's too late." So he knew the government until it was taken out of the hands of the government. So he knew that there will never be sound money as long as the government's controlling it. Exactly what Adam just said, right? The government's always going to want to inflate it. There will never be hard money as long as the government controls it. So it has to be taken away from the government, but you can't do it by force. That's what he said. It has to be done in a sly, roundabout way, which is kind of what Bitcoin was like. This thing, it was stupid. It's ridiculous. Nobody paid any attention to it for 10 years. Now it's too big. It can't be shut down. It's too late.
Okay, so there's just a follow-on comment to what Jacko said. Price is measured in Bitcoin. Okay, and let's get through some of these other questions here. Matt asked, what's the best resource for finding out where the city movers and money are moving to? Well, the Creating Wealth show by Jason Hartman is a great resource.
U-Haul.
Yeah, U-Haul is great. Yeah, Mark is right about that. U-Haul has been for many years doing a lot of surveys, and they always publish news releases. You can go to their website. There's a whole list of them that show where people are renting their trucks to go to and from. And what's interesting is if you use their pricing engine on their website and just play around, it takes only seconds. Say you want to rent a U-Haul truck, make sure it's the same size truck in each direction, and say you want to go from Los Angeles to where Adam lives in Austin, Texas, right? And you'll find that renting a U-Haul truck to do that is very expensive. But if you want to just reverse it and flip that trip on a one-way rental, it's going to be very cheap. They're almost going to pay you to bring it back into California, because U-Haul literally has to pay people to drive their trucks back into the state. That's how you know that a state is in trouble. And
like a month ago, I looked at that number from California to Texas and back, and I think it was like 3,000 to go to Texas, and it was like 400 to come back.
That sounds about right. I've done that search many times myself. So very interesting. Hey, so U-Haul is a good source. There's also a website that's the Moving Industry Association website. And I looked at it just last week. It used to be called promover.org, but I think that may have changed in the years since I looked at it. I once purchased like a $300 report from them. But look, you don't really have to look at too much analysis, Matt. Just use your common sense, okay? It's pretty easy to know where the action is, right? It's in the southeastern United States. It's in the business-friendly right-to-work states, meaning the states where you're not forced at gunpoint to join a labor union to get a job, that you have a right to work, okay? So, the action is in all of these states. Like, if you go to jasonhartman.com and look at where we've got properties available in the properties section, those are all the states where the action is. Now, we don't have every state that's the best one or every city because we just don't have a team there. But everything you see there will be a state where you should consider moving yourself and or your money to. Okay, so hope that helps. Okay,
I have a question for both of you guys real quick, because both of you are in desirable states that are going to see a massive influx, right? So Florida and Texas.
Yeah.
A lot of New Yorkers coming to Florida, a lot of Californians going to Texas. And this works because like we're leaving an oppressive regime to going to a more business friendly, as Jason said, even a right to work state, right? But what happens when you bring all those Californians and New Yorkers in and they change your state?
Yeah, they do. They do. People are complaining about that in Texas. Now, Adam, you tend to skew to the more liberal side of the political spectrum. You are in Austin. So that's the one spot in Texas that's sadly liberal. But
Houston's becoming much more liberal.
What?
Houston's becoming much more liberal.
Everything is. And that's one of the things a lot of people in these places that Mark is mentioning are complaining about is that they're making their state more liberal because they're coming there and they're bringing all their crazy, left-wing politics to these places. So, Mark, what you're saying is exactly true. Yeah.
There's actually a saying that people say here. It's "Don't California my Texas."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like why don't you just stay where you're at if you want those ideals? Like, right? Like I would leave. Taxes is obviously one big piece of it, but like for me in California, it's beyond taxes. It's I don't believe with the ideals. I don't like the vision of the state. I don't like what they're using my money for. So I want to leave those ideals to go to another state that has my more ideology or whatever. So if you have those views, why don't you just stay where you're at, right? I think that's
well, but they don't. It's I'll look at. I mean, we don't need to get into politics too far, but I will say this: if both sides of the aisle have their problems and their advantages, maybe or two, right? But the left side of the political aisle seems to be the more hypocritical side to me. Now, now I'll get some comments. Okay, now we'll light the comments on fire. Jason, screw you jerk. Hey, post your comments. We'll take them, okay? But it really is. It's like the NIMBY syndrome, right? In the real estate world, that means not in my backyard, right? Everybody wants, there to be prisons and sewage treatment plants. They just don't want it near them. And so the liberals in these places, they like the liberal ideology and they want everybody else to pay lots of taxes, but they don't want to pay it themselves, right? So that's what I think happens, Mark.
Well, that assumes that it's the liberals who are leaving.
Good point. And some of them are. It really is usually divided up more by income and class, socioeconomic class, because the ultra uber rich will just stay in places like California because they've got so much money it doesn't matter. But the educated middle class, which is, by the way, the largest, share of the productive base and the tax base, they've been leaving for many years, and now they're leaving even more. I mean, look on the screen, and there's the Peter Schiff post from 2 weeks ago, I think, about the wealth tax. And then, I looked at this other graphic, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Not funding your bad ideas.
Yeah, that working middle class that you referred to, Jason. Not only are they leaving because of the tax issues they're being crushed by, but also the businesses that they worked for were driven out of the state.
That's a good point too.
So that they lost their jobs. They had to follow their jobs out of the state.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing to that prior question. Now, this, the one feature I really love about Facebook is the memories feature, because it reminds me of how my life used to be. And this came up just yesterday. I posted this 6 years ago or 2 days ago. This was 6 years and 2 days ago I posted this, okay? And so in 2014, here I am showing a property from our website, jasonhartman.com, that produces a cash-on-cash return of 11% annually. Now, one of our clients bought this property, and look how nice this is. It's in Indianapolis area, okay? And you see the picture of the house, and I'm going to blow this up on the screen because it's too small to read this, and then it gets blurry. But, great deals, high-quality income properties, even newer homes. Like this was a very new home at the time. And, up 36% overall return on investment, 11% cash on cash. And here's the pro forma with all the numbers. Now you can see these pro formas at jasonhartman.com in the properties section, but you can see the flow of money has driven up the prices of these assets as it's been leaving California. And, when I got into this business 16, 17 years ago now, I knew that hundreds of billions of dollars were going to flow out of California. And I just thought, if I can get a small piece of that, I'm going to be really happy. And so far it's been a great business.
And that Indiana market that is now, you can still buy a house for $125,000, but it's going to be a renovated property from 1960, and it'll probably return about 9%.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we shouldn't just be picking on California. New York, this is true of any high tax, government intrusive jurisdiction. So, look at this one. This is great. See ConAgra leaving New York, Penguin Random House, Carlisle. All these companies are leaving New York as, Cuomo sits there and waves goodbye, and says, hey, come back. De Blasio and I will cook dinner for you. I found that to be pretty funny, So, invest in places like Southwest Florida. I mean, we've got a webinar on that this week. Go register at jasonarman.com/SW Florida. These are the markets where the action is, these business-friendly states, Mark, do you have some thoughts?
Well, I would like to know more. You're talking about Indy. Both of you guys are talking about Indy. Yeah. I would like to hear what you think about that. I mean, you mentioned a business-friendly state. I liked Indy because it's kind of like in that Rust Belt or whatever. And I thought with Mike Pence being from Indy, they were going to bring some manufacturing back there and whatnot. It seems to me that moving to warm, sunny states is the best place. But you guys both seem to like Indy. I'm just curious about that, particularly because I own rental properties in Indy. So
yeah. Indianapolis has been our longest running market. I've probably been doing business in Indianapolis for, don't quote me on this, but 14 years now. That is our longest uninterrupted running market. And I agree with you that most of the action is in the sunshine areas. No question. Those are, that they're hot. Okay. But, you do pay a little bit of a premium in those markets, right? Indianapolis is a good, solid market. You've got Rolls-Royce there making jet engines. You've got, is it Merck? I think Merck, but there's a lot of pharmaceutical there. So it's good. I mean, it's all a matter of, price. I mean, I'd rather have it be a sunnier place. I agree. But there are a few exceptions. We've done some business in some of the outlying areas of Chicago. We've got another Indiana market besides Indianapolis itself. We do a little bit of business in Ohio too. So there are a few markets that just really make sense. And, it's not all driven by weather always. So yeah, that's my comment on that. Folks, we got a whole bunch more questions coming in here, questions and comments. And Mark, a lot of these are directed at you and crypto and stuff like that. So, okay, so we have this other Jane Doe question. Any concerns with the quick rising prices of single-family homes, median price of $304,000, many older grade homes with no upgrades in Vegas at ridiculous prices? Well, that's a really interesting question. And, Mark, I think when we talked for like an hour yesterday. That was a great convo.
Yeah.
Let me find this slide. I think I have a slide for this. I'm just going to find it offline here for a second. But you know what? I'll give you another. We'll come back to that. Let me give you another crypto question to chew on. And Mark, if you can look at that, and Adam, you might have comments too. And let me find. I got a really interesting visual for you. Go ahead, Mark.
So anyway, to answer this question, no, they can't because it's not in a data center, and that's the whole point, right? So it's decentralized. And so what this really means is this is revolutionary. This is a brand new technology that the world has never seen before. And people have yet to even really grasp how powerful it is. So typically you would have a data center, as this question poses, and they would try to shut it down. Now, we already seen some things like, let's say we have apps. I have apps on my phone. You have like a Telegram app or a Signal app. And we saw Russia try to shut down the Signal app. And they were trying to shut down all the IPs and all the servers. And they shut like half the internet down. Russia did, trying to get rid of it, and they still couldn't. Okay, but that's even with the traditional like data centers you're talking about. Well, the way Bitcoin works is that there's hundreds of thousands of computers or computer nodes that run the software code all over the world. I have them running at my house. there's 100,000 people that have them running at their house, just like me, all over the world. And every single one of them runs the entire database.
And there's about 2,000 of those, right? Those miners, right? Or
well, no, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of those.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
the miners process the transactions. So you have two things. You have the miners that process the transactions, but then all the transactions process through a node. The node is what runs the entire database. And so they're completely decentralized by people just like me, but in countries all over the world. So they would literally have to go find every single one in every single home in every single country all over the world in order to do that. So no, it's not possible.
And all those servers are why we continue emitting massive amounts of
it's
carbon
not very environmentally friendly.
Bitcoin costs so much in energy, though.
How is that?
Oh, it's
How's that?
Processing power.
You know that. Yeah.
So okay. So let's talk about that for a second, because that's obviously one of the cheap lobs that are thrown over the wall. Let's dissect that a little bit. So first of all, Bitcoin wastes energy. Okay, that's the comment. I hear it all the time. Well, first of all, there's no waste. Energy is made on demand. Okay, so there's no such thing as waste. It's made as I need it. I buy it. So if I'm willing to buy it, then I'm using it, and it's obviously for a need. So who's to say that your need is better than my need? First of all, right? So there's no such thing as a waste. First of all, you have to kind of.
I didn't say waste. I just said it was creating a lot.
Okay. Let's continue on. So the next thing is, second of all, you have Bitcoin. Can basically, so what does the banking system do? It handles deposits, it stores my money, it handles payments, and it has loans. Okay, so how much energy does the banking industry use? Imagine the Bank of America skyscrapers all over the world. Imagine just the data centers that Bank of America has, for example.
That's a good point. Compared to what?
Okay, compared to what? Okay, what about the gold industry? How much energy does the gold industry
gold
use?
is terrible for the environment.
I mean, so we can chase this on now, but it gets even better. Okay, so you want to look at compared to what, Jason? Yes, compared to the banking industry, compared to the millions of skyscrapers with thousands of lights that they have on all the time. So anyway, we can put that aside. Compared to the gold industry with their diesel tractors digging out of the ground. Okay, put that aside. But here's the bigger thing. Okay, so back to this geo arbitrage, back to this thing, right? I believe that capitalism is a system, right? And it's a way that you can take an underutilized asset and convert it into something more attractive. And Adam, you're in Texas, so you get this. So the one thing that Bitcoin does is it's this geo arbitrage because it's global. So for example, in California, we have the highest energy prices in the country. I think 40 cents a kilowatt hour. In Texas, you're at like 8 or 10 cents a watt. In some places in China, it's like 3 cents. Why is it 3 cents or why is it 8 cents in Texas where it's 40 cents in California? Well, because Texas has a ton of energy, so it's cheaper, right? So what Bitcoin does is it goes to the cheapest jurisdictions where it finds the electricity. So it can go to Illinois and get it for 4 cents a watt. Why is it 4 cents a watt there? Because they're creating more energy than they can use. Now, power plants have to work at peak capacity. A power plant can't make this much energy, but only sell this much. And so what Bitcoin does is actually helps because it goes to those areas where it's cheapest. And in the areas that is cheapest, this is how a capitalist system works. It organizes labor.
You're saying your statement is pretty interesting, Mark, because what you're almost saying is that Bitcoin is a proxy for price discovery.
So look, central planning always fails because a guy doesn't know what 330 million people in the United States want. A capitalist system, money is communication, and it organizes labor, organizes goods and services. That's how it organizes things. So Bitcoin helps to organize price discovery in energy, but it's even better than that. So hang on, I'm not even done yet. So not only can we now go help out the people with 3 cent power, 4 cent power, and use that extra energy they're using, what we're even doing now is all through the Midwest, through Canada, you have oil fields. Adam, you got oil fields all over Texas. And when they pull oil out of the ground, natural gas comes out of the ground. But natural gas is so cheap that they don't capture it. They flare it off. Flaring natural gas is they either vent it or they flare it. Well, neither one is good for the environment. Anyone would probably agree to that. But because they're in the oil field, I talked to an oil field operator yesterday. He can't get his natural gas to a pipeline. He can't get anywhere. He's on 180,000 acres in Texas, right? So there's this energy that's unusable. It can't be put into the system, and it's being ruined in the environment. So what we're doing is we're taking Bitcoin mining operations and setting them at the wellhead, and we're now capturing that natural gas that would otherwise be leaked into the system, and we're converting it right there on the spot. So it's not creating a problem; it's solving a problem. It's limiting the energy in the banking industry, limiting the energy in the gold industry, and it's utilizing underutilized energy, and even
let me just make sure we understand.
Jason, before you continue.
I just want to make a understanding.
I know. I'm just going to tell you, I have to head out. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's been fun, Mark. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for that answer.
All right.
And enjoy the rest of the conversation. But I have to head out.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
So what I was going to say is I just want you to clarify that. What you're saying is some Bitcoin miners or processors are setting up generators at the wellheads, and they're capturing energy to use for their operations because that energy is cheaper, right? Is that what you're saying there? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so let's look at a couple of things here. And I just got to clean that up. So what's interesting here is, there's a lot of news about how bad the economy is, but it's super uneven because in some cases it's actually kind of good. This is the personal savings rate, okay, in the last 5 years. And what's interesting is how, and this is true of my own life, and Mark, I bet it's true of you and your family too, and probably everybody watching, is that, when these lockdowns started, the spending just almost stopped. I mean, all it is the UPS guy delivering packages, but my spending is like way down. Okay. So savings has been way up the last few months now. It's interesting, you notice as the lockdowns lifted in some areas, the savings rate went down. But, remember, capital formation is the key to wealth creation. I get that 70% of the economy is spending. I totally understand that. But you've ultimately got to have capital formation if you want to make a person, a family, a country rich, a society. You have to create capital. Okay. Yeah. So that's just interesting. And then let's talk about the price of houses. And we got a whole bunch more comments we got to get to. I was on George Gammon, our mutual friend, Mark. I was on George Gammon's show last Wednesday, and I was arguing that real estate is actually quite cheap now. Okay. And I was just this morning looking at an interesting report by First American Title, the title company. They have a huge research arm that I've followed for almost 2 decades now. And this report it talks about the real house price index, okay, or the RHPI, and it takes into account median household income, interest rates, and house prices, and weighs them together. The only thing they didn't account for is inflation, but if it's a snapshot in time, inflation really is sort of a non-issue. Okay, so that's what it takes into account. And when you look at the house price, because nobody buys a house based on the price, they buy it based on the monthly cost.
Yep.
Cost of home ownership has declined. Houses are actually cheap right now, folks. Watch this, okay? In real terms, the real house price index, according to First American, you can go look at this on their website, has declined by 22% in the last 20 years because of these artificially low interest rates. And I think the interest rates are a scam. I think they are artificially low. I don't agree with rates this low. I'm just saying take advantage of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay. And then
the devil's advocate there is just that with 40 million people out of work, how will those 40 million people be able to buy a home, even no matter how cheap it is?
Right. Yeah. Good point. And I think that most of the unemployment, at least so far, is in lower wage jobs that aren't in the home buying market anyway. So the next logical question is, well, how are they going to be able to pay their rent if they're renting from me and I'm their landlord? Well, so far, the whole rent payment eviction moratorium thing, it has definitely not hit our customers. I mean, I haven't even heard of one example. It certainly hasn't hit my personal portfolio, it is more of an issue in the left-wing jurisdictions, in bigger institutional apartment buildings where the tenants can talk to each other and they can form a mutiny, they can gang up on their landlord and do a rent strike.
Right.
But even then, so far, knock on wood, it's just not that significant. This whole rent strike thing has been largely overplayed by the media, I think. Now, again,
the one thing I would say about that too, I would also agree. I've seen the same thing with my rental units. I've been fortunate. I just signed up a new tenant, I think last week, and everyone's been paying, so it's been good.
Yep.
The one thing I would say though too, obviously, you've kind of brought up the point that there is no such thing as the market. There's thousands of submarkets, and they're broken up by price and type and things like that. So if you look at like a bread and butter 3-bedroom, 2-bath entry level kind of starter home, there will always be someone that needs that home. Always.
Right.
Always, there will always be demand for that home. So, if you look at different now McMansions, $800,000 mansions in some of these bad areas, those are a different story.
Right. Yeah. So the McMansion thing, what Mark's saying is absolutely right, because you can catch people moving up or moving down the socioeconomic ladder with an inexpensive, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. You can catch that person moving either way. Okay, so absolutely, it's a very versatile asset class. But look at this. This is also the first American report. It's the same report. Okay, consumer house buying power in 2018 is double the rate from 2000. Okay, so in 18 years, consumers have literally had double the house buying power that they had 18 years earlier. Fascinating. Real house prices are 36% below their housing boom 2006 peak price. And Mark, you and I know how, there's that famous book, How to Lie with Statistics, which I would highly recommend people read. That, you see these people on CNBC, and I'm sure it drives you as crazy as it drives you crazy like it does me. They're talking about how, they'll show a chart of house prices, but nobody's buying based on the price. They're buying based on the monthly cost.
Of course.
It's just so misleading. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the two things that I look at, and Jason, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong things, but two things that I like to look at are, because as you said, it's relative, right? So one is the monthly payment to the average income. And as you're showing, right, like the payment, the month, because nobody buys a house outright. As a matter of fact, 94% of new home purchases are done with loans. So nobody buys the full price. They buy the monthly payment. So you look at where does the monthly payment to income lie? And I think that's kind of the chart that you just showed. The other one that you would look at too would then be payment versus rent. Do you look at that one as well?
Right. Not in this, but I do have another chart on that. I'd have to find it, but it's interesting because it shows that landlords have really been getting the better end of the bargain the last several years. So I do have a chart on that that shows them totally diverging. So maybe I can find that for you. But anyway, average household income in 2018 is nearly 50% higher than it was in 2000, so 18 years earlier. House prices are 9% lower than they were in 2000. Okay, now this goes up to 2018, so it doesn't count the last 2 years. Okay, so just want you to know that. This is just my own math. Okay, in 2006, what many people consider to be the peak of the market, a $100,000 mortgage would cost you $626 per month in principal and interest. In 2020, 14 years later, you can get a $170,000 mortgage for $1 more.
Wow.
Okay, isn't that amazing? In other words, your buying power has increased thanks to Uncle Ben Bernanke, or not Uncle Ben Bernanke, Uncle Jerome Powell.
Right.
Him, all of them really, even Janet Yellen, but Uncle Jerome Powell was really the one who gave us the most recent gift. Has given you a 70% increase in buying power. It's unbelievable. It's just totally incredible. So anyway, that's that. I'll look for that other chart, Mark. But man, we got a ton of questions piling up. Let's grab some of them. Okay, are you game for that? And
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
we'll,
I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes. So let's play.
let's see what we can wrap up before you go. Okay. Okay. Here you go. This was the data center question. We did that one, right?
We saw that one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is one of our clients, Adrian Risch. Hey, Adrian. Is leveraged real estate really a smart, hard asset to own during economic recessions and depressions? It's great for income during good times, but has counterparty risk from lenders and tenants. Well, everything has counterparty risk, meaning there's always someone on the other side of a transaction, right?
Right.
So that's for sure. But the great thing about income property that's leveraged is that, you know, in the worst case scenario, and we saw millions of people do this during the Great Recession, you know, 10 to 12 years ago, is you have what I call the nuclear option. You can just do a strategic default and walk away and say, hey, lender, you know, we signed a contract and the contract said I would either make the payments or I would give you the collateral back. So you can choose the option to give them back the collateral. Now, it is going to hurt your credit, but mostly in those environments, what people found, interestingly, is that they gave back their properties or they got loan modifications and short sales and workouts. But they found that their credit really wasn't very valuable anyway,
Right.
because there was no lending going on. The lending
Right.
market had contracted so much that even if they had an 800 FICO score, it was meaningless. Okay, so interesting point there. Good question. Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah.
And thank you for all your business. Reed, what's your guys' thoughts on residency in Puerto Rico? Oh, Mark, I'm sure you'll have some thoughts about that one.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. It's something that I'm actively looking into right now. As I said, I live in California and I have a hard time wanting to leave California because I'm a surfer and I just love the beach and the waves. So for me, as I said, like Florida didn't really have any waves. So for me, it's like, well, why not just go all the way to Puerto Rico? They have awesome waves. It's in the Caribbean. It's beautiful. And the tax rate is at like 4%. So I'm looking into that as we speak. And I know they're starting to get more people there than they had originally wanted. And I think that program's going to be tapered off. And so if anybody's interested, they should really look into trying to get the paperwork filed this year to be grandfathered into the program. Even if you're not going to move there, I think you have 2 more years to decide if you want to move there, but it's kind of like a placeholder. So that's my thought.
Yeah, and I've looked at the Puerto Rico thing many, many times. I've been there many, many times. I've done several podcasts on the thing. And, you know, the tax deal is a great deal. I have several friends that live there, but you know, I just don't like Puerto Rico well enough to do it. So, yeah, it's basically the federal tax and no capital gains. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the deal. It's pretty incredible. Okay, so let's see here. I don't buy anything based on price. This is Peter's question. I focus on value and invest in productive assets. The gold and Bitcoin phones largely broke kids who think, well, I don't know that that's true. I mean, what do you think about Peter's thing, Mark?
I would say a little bit, sure.
It's speculative, you know. Yeah.
It is speculative, and I already made that claim, right? It is speculative, and it has to be speculative. No new technology can get off the ground without speculators. Speculators are a very important piece of the ecosystem, even in real estate. So I got started in real estate buying bank-owned repos, fixing them up, and selling them. I was speculating, and without me, there wouldn't have been new homes for people to buy. And so speculators are an important part of the ecosystem. So don't discount it. I understand what you're saying. You focus on value, and Bitcoin is speculative. Yes. And yeah, there for sure are people that are chasing it, trying to make money for sure. I mean, that's what speculators do. So I don't think it cheapens it or in any way.
Robert is a fan of yours and mine. So thanks, Robert. We appreciate it. And you're in Huntington Beach. Yeah. Not too far from Mark. Okay. So, selling 5 coins out of my collection, 0 out my debt. My coin investment paid off. That's 10,000 fold. So did you buy Bitcoin, or I'm wondering what coin you bought? And here we've got So yeah, I mean, listen, when I first heard of Bitcoin, it was like $75. So do you think I'm kicking myself? Yeah, but you know, I don't, I'm still not a huge fan. Mark's the Bitcoin guy here. more than me. Okay, tax is illegal and won't fly. You're talking about the California tax. I don't know, man. They'll find some way around it.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Well, especially because this whole retroactive thing. Like, how can they hit you with a retroactive thing? I could see, like, okay, starting January 1st, that's like the new law, but like, how can they just say, well, you moved out a year ago? Well, guess what? Retroactively, now you owe us for 10 years.
That would seem unconstitutional. I just think that they'll find some way. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to find some way. I think hopefully not this, right? Like doing it retroactively, all that. Like, hopefully that doesn't fly. But I mean, they're gonna raise taxes. They're gonna raise property taxes. They're gonna raise state income taxes. I mean, I think they're about saying we know that.
They're gonna have a wealth tax. It's crazy. It's crazy. And thank you for the kind words, Sutanto. You guys are so great. I think you should run for office in California. Mark, go for it. You gonna run for office, Mark?
Yeah, that's not a job that I would like. And you know what? That's a good point, though. It's something that I think about quite often, and it's the problem is that you definitely have two different types, two different ideologies, and you kind of have this conservative, fiscal conservative, whatever you want to call it over here, and then the more liberal left, now left, whatever you want to call it over here. And the differences in the ideology are that the more conservative people are like, look, let me just live my life. Like, just leave me alone. Let me make my money. Let me take care of my family, take care of my community. And like, I'm good. Right. The other side doesn't want to take care of themselves. They want to take care of you, right. But I don't want their help.
Yeah, right.
The thing that's different is those people that don't want to take care of themselves, they want to push everything onto other people. They're the ones that go into politics because that's what they want to do.
Right.
Us over on the other side, I'm like, dude, just leave me alone. Like, I just want to make my money, live my life, be with my kids. Sure. I don't want to go into politics, but that's the problem. We're underrepresented.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Conservatives are usually too busy running their business and minding their own business to yeah, exactly. Sacramento equals shithole. Yeah, I agree. Now, this was interesting. You said if you live in a high tax state, I guess you're probably saying, you can get an out-of-state LLC. Not really. The IRS, for example, taxes you on all worldwide income if you're an American citizen. And the state of California, if you live there, that's going to trickle down to your personal tax return. There are some complex structures that you can use to help a little bit, but you're going to pay tax if you live in the Socialist Republic of California. The FTB, the Franchise Tax Board in California, is probably the most aggressive taxing agency in any state. And man, the state is broke. They're going to get their claws into you. So that's what they're going to do. Okay, we got a few.
I have a friend who has a really big business, like really big, and they opened up a division in Texas many years ago, and their Texas division is actually much bigger than the California division. And his business partner moved to Texas to run the Texas side. He stayed here, but now he's moved over to Texas as well. Oh. The piece, though, is that his partner, who legit sold everything he owned, legit moved to Texas, lived there, ran a business. The state of California still continued to sue him for state taxes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. They'll definitely do that. Okay, so DM here had a couple of comments or questions. Infomercial for making these guys rich. Okay, great. So it looks like maybe we have a hater here. Making $200 a month renting a house is a headache and barely worth it. DM, you do not understand how it works. Okay. Income property, and just go to the website and look at the performance. There's in 27 minutes, you can totally understand this. You can watch a free video on the front page of my website that will teach you how that $200 a month can really equal, because a lot of this return is below the iceberg. It's like an iceberg, it's below the water, right? Most of it. And you earn your return in all sorts of different ways. Looking at it as a $200 a month positive cash flow is myopic. A $200 a month positive cash flow on a good piece of property can earn you 30% annually. Okay, so you just please do yourself a favor, learn the math. Why do you think income property is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world? Why do you think and we all know, so many people who have become rich owning income property. You think it was from $200 a month? No, there's way more to it than that. I love their.
The other thing I would just add on to that comment, though, Jason, is just that it's a hassle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Making money is a hassle. It is. It would be much easier if I could just sit in my house, watch TV all day and get rich, but it doesn't work that way. So, it's a hassle. I mean, it takes work, and it takes work to find them, and it takes time to manage them. And easy as it gets with managing property managers in place and whatnot, I still have to look at their statement once a month. I mean, it's a hassle, but it's a worthwhile hassle.
Yeah. Everything, there's no, like I've said for a long time, anybody who tells you there's a passive investment is a liar. No investment's passive. You always need to pay attention, even to a bank account. And I've explained that on my show. Okay, Susan, I just found a duplex, 2-bedroom, 3-bath in Topeka, Kansas, asking $225 each side. That's a good deal. I just don't think Topeka's, a growth area, but that the rent to value ratio sounds really good, Susan. I don't know how old the property is, how much maintenance it needs. There are other issues, of course, but just based on what you said, then those numbers look pretty good. I'm sure Mark would agree. Okay.
Yeah, they look great to me.
Millions of miners and gold color mines with your handle, with your screen name. Why am I not surprised that you're a miner? Okay, so Bitcoin miner. There's a lesson here. Be diversified. Gold, silver, crypto, 10%. What do you think of that diversification, that asset allocation, Mark?
It's such a specific thing to you because it's really about like, okay, where do I want to go first, and where am I? And then what's my plan to get there? And asset allocation is part of that roadmap that decides, like, for example, I want to put a lot more to cash flow because my goal is to retire in 5 years. But maybe I don't, that's not my goal. Maybe I want to put it all into growth. So it's a personal question. So I can't really tell you because I don't know what your goals are, what you're trying to do. However, based off of that, liquidity, gold, silver, coins, crypto, 10 to 15%. I mean, so I see 68% passive income. So again, for me, 68% in passive income, that's great because I believe in building passive income like Jason does. But I don't know what your goals are. So I can't.
There really is such a thing as passive income, but right. Yeah. Because that's rental.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, you got it. Yeah, I understand. I know you know. Okay, folks, we got to wrap up here. So no more questions. If we don't get to your question, just go to jasonhartman.com/ask. And I'll answer it on the podcast. That's jasonhartman.com/ask. And one of our investment counselors will reach out to you. David, yes, I own property in San Antonio myself. It is a good rental market. It's getting a little expensive. A lot of Texas is getting a little expensive. So we've done hundreds, maybe thousands of referral transactions in Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. All of those markets have become a little expensive. That's why we're focusing on the markets you'll see at jasonhartman.com in the property section now.
The one thing I would just add to that real quick, though, is expensive relative to what? And so I hear that in Florida a lot. Like, I mean, prices are up 7,500% in the last, 6-7 years. And they're super expensive. Yeah, they're expensive compared to where they were a year ago, but compared to California, compared to California, they're super cheap. Compared to the rest of the country, it's still very cheap. And so when you start seeing people move from these, tax heavy or whatever kind of burdens they want to leave and move to other areas, they're leaving from a more expensive area because almost everywhere is more expensive and coming to a cheaper area. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. It's a good, I've talked about this for years. I call it the water theory of money. If I dump this water out of this container, right, what is it going to do? It's going to seek the lowest point. That's what water does. Money does the same thing. It looks for bargains. It's a great price discovery method. And that's what Mark is referring to. And my compared to what there is, I just think we have better markets than San Antonio right now. We have better properties, but it's not bad at all. Okay. Bitcoin can buy gold and silver land. Yes, I know that. Okay, that's good. How can I capture natural? Oh, hey, Mark, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. How do I invest in the capture of natural gas to power Bitcoin mining? Right now, it's kind of being done on a private basis. So the best way to invest into it would be that I could say would be one, if I end up getting this deal put together, I'm working with a publicly traded company to start doing the Bitcoin mining on their natural gas. There might be like private money placement deals available. That might be. It's not available today, but it'd be in one of those. Right now, it'd be all private money deals. The other way would be, like I said, this is being done under a public traded company. So then at some point, you could buy the publicly traded stock that's doing the Bitcoin mining. So those are the two ways that I could think that you'd be able to kind of tap into that as an investment. Good
stuff. Thank you for grabbing that one. Great market. Oh, you're probably talking about San Antonio. You partnered on a 400 unit. Congratulations. He couldn't take Mark's passion for Bitcoin. I don't know what you're talking about there, but maybe was that because Adam left or something? I'm not sure what you mean, but that's funny. I'm closing on six single family homes. I found that could meet your 1% rule. Okay, 0.9. Hey, that's still pretty good. I have some short-term rentals, I guess. And then you're talking about COVID 1984. That's what COVID is. COVID 1984. Concerns about tenants' ability to consistently. Yeah. So Section 8. Section 8 is we have some investors that love Section 8, some that hate it. There's not much middle ground. And we have clients that do both. It's a long topic. We don't have time for today, but lots on the podcast. By the way, if you go to jasonhartman.com and you just in the upper left or upper right, there's a search engine for the website. Just type in what you want, like type in Section 8, and you'll find lots of podcast material on that. I've interviewed lots of experts on that. Okay. Bitcoin is man-made, could be replaced overnight. It's not cheap. Hey, Mark, there's one for you. I bet you're going to disagree with that. From DM.
Yeah, the code was obviously created by a man, for sure. Yeah. The thing to keep in mind is that, sure, gold came naturally out of the ground, but so do feathers, and so do shells, and so do rocks. So why is it gold and not a rock? Yeah. Why is it gold and not steel? Well, because people value it. So it really comes down to trust. People have to trust that money is good. As soon as that money is not good anymore, they lose trust. And so, yeah, the code was written by a group of men, obviously. But if people decide to use it as money, they decide to use it. So that being said, could it be replaced overnight? Absolutely not. There's no way it can be replaced overnight. Today, there's no way to get to that decentralized nature again without being attacked instantly. So there's no way you could build up the security. It had to have been done in, like I said in the beginning, that sly roundabout way.
Right.
So nobody cared about it for 7 or 8 years. It was left alone. Now it's too big to be attacked. Today, if somebody's tried to start another one, it would be instantly attacked and shut down. Now, people say, oh, but wait, there's 5,000 other cryptocurrencies. Sure, there's 1 million copies of the Mona Lisa, but does that cheapen the Mona Lisa? No. There's no other cryptocurrency that can do what Bitcoin can do. Just like there's no other metal that can do what gold can do. So just because there's other metals doesn't cheapen gold either.
Yeah.
And then the last comment about it being too slow. I mean, that's like an argument from 2017. That's like you're saying the internet's too slow in 1997. The Bitcoin is not too slow anymore. It used to be. Now there's scaling solutions that have been added onto layer 2 with Liquid and Lightning and whatnot. And it's faster than any other cryptocurrency that's out there.
Yeah, interesting. I always say that the two primary value drivers for anything are scarcity and utility. Bitcoin has built-in scarcity, and I think the utility is questionable. Again, I'm not a big fan, okay? But if I'm going to do cryptocurrencies, I think Bitcoin is in a class by itself because it doesn't have a CEO. It doesn't. It's totally decentralized. Ethereum, you can knock on somebody's door and arrest them. Okay, Bitcoin, you can't do that. So if you're an oppressive government, right? What is this thing about Bitcoin at $5? Sign me up. I'll buy a ton of it.
Well, what he's saying is that you can buy $5 worth of Bitcoin. So a lot of times people are like, oh, it's $11,000. I can't buy an $11,000 Bitcoin. Well, that's like saying a bar of gold, 400-ounce bar of gold. I can't buy that either. We don't have to buy a 400-ounce bar of gold. You can buy a gram. And so Bitcoin's the same way. You don't have to buy an $11,000 Bitcoin. You can buy $5 worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting stuff there. Okay, folks, we got to wrap it up. I guess brand new up and coming slumlord. Good job. I agree. Hey, be a slumlord. Good job.
I mean, someone's got to provide housing for those people.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's better than living on the street. Somebody's got to do it. Folks, I would love to stay and answer your questions all day. We got so many more we didn't get to. My apologies, but we've already been on over an hour and a half now. And, yesterday or last week, we almost went 2 hours. They just keep coming. So thank you for all your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to everything, but you can go to jasonhartman.com/ask. And we are actually thinking of doing this live stream twice a week because you guys have just expressed so much interest, and we really appreciate that. But again, that's what the podcast is for. We publish 5 days a week on the podcast. Mark, you have a podcast, but you're really more on the YouTube side. I've also got a YouTube channel that's like nothing compared to yours, but give out your information.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 best places to keep up with me would be on YouTube. Just go on to YouTube, Mark Moss. And then I'm pretty active on Twitter as well. And my handle is just #1, the 1 Mark Moss. So those are 2 places that you'll probably find me the most.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Any closing remarks you want to wrap up with?
I would just say that I congratulate and applaud all of you for being on this show, because you're here learning, you're trying to expand your education, you're asking questions, and you're actively trying to manage and grow your wealth. And it's just so important today, more than ever today, because the future is uncertain and things are changing pretty rapidly. Nobody's coming to save you. You're on your own here. And so it's important for all of us to be doing exactly what everybody on this video right now is doing. And so anyway, I just congratulate you for doing that. And then just want to just encourage you to continue down this path, continue to add to your real estate portfolio, continue to add to your education and your investments, because it's absolutely crucial. Because, like I said, no one's coming to save you, and it's the only way to have options to move to states, options to move to countries, and so forth. So anyway, a little bit of encouragement.
Good stuff. All right, Mark, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Again, jasonhartman.com/ask, and we'll get to the rest of you. We got like tons of questions we just didn't have time for. So just go there and check it out. Also, with our mutual friend, we did a video and a book you can get for free at Pandemic Investing with George Gammon, Mark. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay. Cool.
So check out Pandemic Investing as well, and you can get a free book on investing during the pandemic. And tomorrow we will have another podcast. We're with you 5 days a week on the Creating Wealth Show. So again, thanks everybody. And until next time, happy investing. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.